Today marks the first day of the Trump administration's renewed sanctions on Iran's oil exports. The U.S. had previously issued a grace period to 8 countries, allowing them to purchase Iranian oil. But now the White House has begun reinforcing a complete embargo on exports. It's all in an effort to drive the country's oil sales to zero. For more on this, I want to bring in Benham Ben Taleblu. He joins me. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. So what do you think this actually means for Iran?
So, Rena, great to be with you. This means that the lifeblood of Iran's economy, oil exports, is now firmly in the targets of the Trump administration. Last November, when they resurrected penalties that the nuclear deal waived, which was primarily on oil and shipping and Iran's energy sector more broadly, 8 countries had received those waivers. Now we know five countries were continuing to import oil, but now they're facing a tight deadline, and in fact, many in Northeast Asia, Japan and South Korea are expected to comply. How major Asian hydrocarbon economies will keep Iran afloat, like China and India, remains to be seen. But it's a question of the Trump administration's resolve now to enforce its own sanctions.
So you've got these exemption waivers expiring. How is Iran responding to all of this?
Iran is responding in its traditional fashion, a lot of bluster, but also a lot of waiting. I like to say that in the face of maximum pressure by the Trump administration, the Iranians are responding with maximum patience. They remain relatively within the boundaries of the Iran nuclear deal. They are a menace in the region, but they haven't escalated grossly. The Saudis have checked them in Yemen. The Israelis have checked them in Syria. So I think the Iranians understand our domestic politics are on full display more so than ever before. And this means that I think they have 2020 in their sights. If they can have enough cash on hand to last until 2020, there might be a chance that they could outlast this maximum pressure policy.
It's interesting to hear you say that patience is sort of their focus right now. So do they believe they've got enough cash to get them through 2020? But what happens if President Trump gets reelected then at that point? Or somebody else who believes they want to continue this policy?
That's right. And they would be, again, in a much tighter spot. When Zarif came to New York last week, he floated this prisoner swap idea at the Asia Society. That, to me, is a sign that the sanctions are already taking a bite and that the Iranians are trying to goad the Trump administration into premature diplomacy to water down the sanctions, much like happened with the North Korean case, where engagement watered down the tight sanctions on North Korea. And as you know, with North Korea, those were multilateral sanctions. With Iran, it's unilateral sanctions. So the fear of watering it down now could be even greater if the administration takes Zarif's hand. Fortunately, they haven't.
For everyday Americans who get gas every week, when can you feel this? At what point do you feel this?
We've seen a brief spike already in Brent prices once the decision to not renew the waiver was announced in late April. But I think the next flashpoint for us is going to be June, when the next OPEC meeting is. In April 2018, Saudi Arabia had increased its production. There were reports in March of this year that Saudi would cut its production by April 2019. Now Saudi Arabia is being counted on by the Trump administration. So really all eyes are on June 2019. Will the Saudis increase their exports, which they have the capability to do so, or not?
What's your sense?
I think ultimately they will. They see Iran as a menace in the region. There is a need to push back on them. They have the Trump administration in lockstep with them on issues like Syria and Iraq. So the question, and in Yemen especially, so the question is, where can you do something to show that you too want to be a part of max pressure and deliver for the Trump administration what it wants in the region?
If the U.S. is successful in using this as a pressure point, what effect do you think this has on the global economy?
I think the economy to look at is not the global one, but the Iranian one. You have severe indicators of macroeconomic contraction. Inflation is quite high. The IMF and the World Bank continue to revise their assessments about negative growth in Iran. The GDP continues to slide back. The rial, Iran's currency, on the unofficial market, the black market, continues to depreciate relative to the dollar. An open question is, how much foreign currency does Iran have on hand to weather this storm? Different banks, different businesses, perhaps even different intelligence agencies have a different estimate here. But this is what's going to keep Iran afloat and either prolong the pressure campaign or begin genuine negotiations.
Benham Ben Taleblu, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.